Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Raid, and I'm a naturopathic doctor. And this is a video that's answering a few questions. This is a video I'm creating to answer a few questions that someone posted in response to one of the recent videos that I did about tests to consider to biohack your way towards better health, optimal health, whatever you want to call it. So there are several questions here. The person who asked the questions asks lovely questions from time to time, and they're really good questions, but I need to read them because, man, oh man, they're a little verbose here. So, so the question is, if a person does not do any of those recommended tests, so in the tests that the person's referring to would be either heavy metal testing, cardiometabolic testing, or genomic testing to look for genetic predispositions, then could they, so if the person does not do any of those recommended tests and they just take mitochondrial supplements, would that be sufficient? So it's a really great question. And of course, nothing that I'm about to say or that I ever say on these videos should be construed as medical advice. So this is just all for information purposes, of course. But it's a really great question. In my opinion, there are really two ways to test whether something is working. One is for a person to take that thing and say, hey, do you feel better? And then the other way is to run labs before and after they go on a supplement or treatment or whatnot, and then see, are those parameters looking better? In my humble opinion, it's more important, at least as a clinician, the first test is more important. If I put a patient on a supplement or whatnot and they're like, hey, like my labs look better, but I don't feel any different at all, it's like, well, how valuable are those biomarkers that are looking better? Whereas if they go on a supplement and they're feeling better, it's like, yeah, my energy's better, my mental clarity's better, my pain's less, I don't have headaches now, etc. Like that's infinitely more valuable, in my opinion, than are their labs looking better. Now, in reality, both I think are important, but I do think the clinical response test is very, very valuable. So I've certainly had patients where we discuss different testing options and the cost benefit ratio, like literally the cost, and then the potential benefit of doing testing. And I say, you know what, let's just do a therapeutic trial. Go on some mitochondrial support. Let's see how you feel. And as long as it's comprehensive mitochondrial support, it's supporting all of the facets of the mitochondria that might need support, then we see how they feel. And if after, 1, 2, 4 weeks, they're like, hey, like I have better energy, I last longer during the day, my mind is sharper, etc. These are all the reasons that I take my mitochondrial support every day, because I can say yes to all of those questions, then it's like, hey, that's a successful therapeutic trial. So with that being said, in the context of this video series where it's doing tests to help augment your biohacking, one could make the argument, I guess I would make the argument or the assertion that taking the mitochondrial support really wouldn't circumvent these tests, because I have patients who feel really good. Either they were sick, we worked together, they feel good now, or they already felt good and they just want to stay feeling that way, and they're feeling really good, and yet we do some of these biohacking tests and we see, oh, things don't look 100% perfect, and so then we want to dig in a little bit deeper and see why that might be. Had to pause the video there as I had a knock on my door, so I can't exactly remember where I left off. I guess I should have taken more mitochondrial support this morning, but I think I was getting at the punchline that it wouldn't, just taking mitochondrial support wouldn't give us all the information that we're looking for in these biohacking related tests. The sort of the punchline or the premise around this video series is to say, hey, if you're feeling really good and you're looking to kind of improve how you're feeling overall, like sure, taking mitochondrial support could be really helpful, but it might be that we miss certain things that we don't otherwise pick up on clinically, just with, say, using more broad stroke treatment like overall mitochondrial support. Might need to hone a little bit more and see like, hey, you're feeling really good, brain's working well, energy levels are good, but we do a test and we see, well, your antioxidant level marker isn't looking quite optimal, so maybe we want to add a little more antioxidant support into the mix, because that's not necessarily baked into comprehensive mitochondrial support at a robust enough level for everybody. Maybe for me, there's enough vitamin C, vitamin E, glutathione in that CoQ10, like in that mitochondrial mix. But for somebody else, they might need a bit more than that, and I do see that sometimes, which is why the test can be helpful. All right, man, verbose. I'm being the verbose one now with these long-winded answers. So let's see here. If taking those supplements and the person is hypothetically healthy, could they lead to any problems in the body, or are they like any other supplement that won't harm the body if taking them while not needing them? I think there might have been a typo there. So yeah, there's really no hard and fast rule saying like that any given supplement is definitely safe to take, whether even if a person doesn't need it. It's really something that should be assessed clinically. So if I had a conversation with the patient saying, "Hey, look at all these cool biohacking tests. We want to look at your mitochondrial health," and they said, "Well, I don't want to do those tests, or I can't afford to do those tests, so I just want to go on the mitochondrial support supplement." Based on their history, there are very few patient scenarios that I can think of where I'd think I don't think it's safe at all to try this mitochondrial support, but there are some. So it's definitely not a blanket like, yes, mitochondrial support for everybody no matter what. And with really any patient, whether they are self-identify as being really, really sensitive, whether they are not very, physiologically sensitive, like they don't react to things easily. Regardless, I always recommend the patient start with a lower dose of supplemental support and gradually build it up, at least when it comes to supporting the mitochondria. Because as you start creating more energy for all the cells in your body, that includes your liver cells. Liver cells use up approximately 22% of all of our resting energy. So like it's super, super important. So when people, clinicians talk about how important it is to make sure your liver pathways are working well, how that's so important, it's like it is, because if they're not, then it's going to be soaking up a lot of energy that could be otherwise given to your brain or your muscles or other important body parts just to make you feel really good. So it does need to be I wouldn't say there's any like free passes. Like I don't think there's a single nutrient that I could name that doesn't potentially have some side effects, or potentially a toxicity from taking too much of it if you don't need it. That being said, there's a lot of wiggle room. Like one of the beautiful things about working with pharmaceutical products, nothing against pharmaceutical products at all, I think they're fantastic, but one of the advantages is that the margin of tolerance or tolerability is generally speaking quite a bit wider for a lot of natural health products, although that's not a hard and fast truth. These are really good questions, and I see that I am like only halfway through, and I see that my video time is over 7 minutes now. So I will have to do part 2 of this answering, or I will answer the rest of the questions in part 2 of this answer video. So I hope that this answered your questions, and thank you for asking these questions. Keep them coming. They're always good questions. And if anybody has any further questions or comments about this, feel free to post them in the comment section below. And otherwise, stay tuned for the rest of the answers coming up soon.